Hi, welcome to this walkthrough of how to set up your end of unit essay. We're excited for these essays all being written. We think that the children are going to be able to apply everything they've learnt over the last few weeks during these knowledge units and produce a really wonderful piece of writing. I'm going to walk you through today the 6 steps that you'll need to set up this task and to make sure that the children will be able to write a really wonderful essay, and that you'll be able to then assess that and get a good picture of how your children are achieving with regards to each other within your cohort. And then there'll also be an opportunity to compare with other children across the country so that you can get an idea of how your children are achieving more nationally. This will also be useful in terms of you starting to map progress in history and in the foundation subjects, because you'll now have a measure of what good writing looks like in history in year 4, what sort of medium writing looks like. And each year that the children write an essay, you can compare a child's essay with themselves a year ago to see the progress that they're making in those subjects in a really meaningful way. So there are 6 steps that we're going to walk through today. The first thing that you're going to need to do is set up a no more marking account. I'm going to walk through how to do that in just a moment. The second thing that you'll have to do is, once you have that account, is to add a new task. I'll explain that as well. Then you'll have to print off some answer sheets from the website with QR codes, special QR codes on them. There'll be then an opportunity for pupils to plan and complete their essays. We think that will probably take 2 or 3 lessons, and I'll explain that as well. After they've completed their essays, you'll scan those scripts into your computer system using a sort of a normal school photocopy. You can scan them all in one go, and it will give you a PDF file with all of those children's scripts. And then No More Marking software will allow you to judge those essays, which will compare them and then rank them so that each child has a standardised score. So let's start off by looking at point 4 here, the planning and the completing of the essays. If we go to our beta website and you just navigate to whichever year group you're teaching in at the moment, then you'll see that the essay structure strip is now live. So just click that and it will download some general guidance, a planning sheet and a structure strip for the essay. So let's just look at the general guidance. Your children now have spent 6 lessons learning all about their particular unit, either the Shang dynasty, the Anglo-Saxons, medieval monarchs or civil rights. And they're ready to apply this now. So they're going to finish the unit by writing their own essay, applying all of that knowledge that they've gained and producing a really high quality piece of writing. We would advise probably spending one lesson to plan the essay together, and then giving the children 2 lessons to write it. Some may not need the 2 lessons, but we've found that sometimes some children need 2 lessons to be able to get everything that they know down on paper. You can decide whether or not the pupils have their booklets available as they write, whether they have them on their desks, their completed booklets. We've tried it with both. We find that if you have a child who's really learnt the material very well, done lots and lots of quizzing, then their writing tend to write quicker, so they write more, and their writing seems to be a bit more sort of original, unique, and so I would probably err on letting them have the booklets, because we're really not trying to set up the children to fail here. We're not trying to catch them out. We're trying to set them up for success. And so that will be a scaffold that some students will need to be able to really experience success. We then provide a planning sheet for each of the essays, which might be helpful in helping the pupils to chunk their ideas into paragraphs. And those paragraphs follow the structure of the lessons. You might like to print off the structure strips that I'll show you below. And then the pupils can use those questions as prompts. So if you do have a student who's really struggling what to write, they can read the question, or you can read the question to them, and they can write a sentence answering that question. And if they work through those questions, it will help them to write an essay and really break it down. For really low retaining pupils, we've sometimes found that jotting some pictures or some images can help as a prompt for writing. So, for example, if you were writing a section about Henry II and Thomas Becket, then you might draw a picture of 4 swords to show the 4 knights that murdered Thomas Becket. And you might draw a crucifix to represent Thomas Becket, and maybe a crown to represent Henry II. So that people see the crown, the 4 swords, and the crucifix, and they can write 4 knights killed Thomas Becket because Henry II was cross. So you might want to jot some pictures for some of those low retaining pupils. For high retaining pupils, we found that they tend to use the structure strips as a guide, but they'll play about with the paragraphs. They might add additional paragraphs, they might change the order, and they also might start to use some essay-specific vocabulary to sort of lift the sophistication of that essay. And we've got some examples of that below as well. As a general guide, we think that in year 3 the essays are likely to be around a page or 2, and the tone of that is really an informative text. They're writing down everything that they know to inform the reader. And in year 4, similarly, it's got an informative tone, but they might be writing 2 to 3 pages by that point, a couple more sentences for each section. By year 5, it's probably about the same length as their handwriting gets smaller and neater. But we would expect the tone there to start to be a bit more persuasive. So they're learning that an essay is essentially making an argument, and they're persuading you of whatever it is that however they want to answer the question. And by year 6, we'd expect it to be a bit longer, and they're starting to understand balance. So they are trying to persuade you, but there's another side to the argument that they have to deal with. And there's just an example here of a section of a year 4 essay to give you an idea of what an essay reads like from what the tone looks like. So let's have a quick look at that planning sheet. So for the Shang dynasty, the essay question at the top, what do we know about life during the Shang dynasty? Nice and broad to allow children to really experience success and not get too stumped, and just demonstrate everything they've learned about this topic. So we might break it down bit by bit. Start off by talking about the introduction. So in the introduction, we might want to tell the reader where the Shang dynasty was, when it was, and some of the broad achievements. So that might be 2 or 3 sentences to introduce the essay. The first paragraph corresponds to the first lesson. So how do we know about life in the Shang dynasty? And the children can talk about how they wrote, and it was the first writing in China. They might want to talk about how we found artifacts, or how the Shang dynasty was a Bronze Age culture. They can review their notes and review the booklets to help remind them of that. What were oracle bones? And again, if a child's really struggling, they can just write a sentence saying, oracle bones were animal bones that the ancient Chinese priests would write on to give them answers from their ancestors about events that were happening. Something like that. So they just answer that question, and it helps them to write an essay. For each of the following paragraphs, they correspond to the lesson. So paragraph 2 will be about Emperor Tang, why he was popular. All of that information was in the lesson. They've learnt all of that once. They might need to review it, and then they can write a paragraph about that, 2 or 3 sentences. Your high retaining pupils might want to break it into 2 paragraphs because they've got so much to say. And so we go down, planning each paragraph, jotting notes about the sorts of things that we're going to talk about in that paragraph. You might also want to use this as an opportunity to remind the children of some key vocabulary that you expect to see in each of those sections. So in paragraph 1, we might write archaeologists. It appears here, but make sure that the children write about archaeologists, or bronze, because it was a Bronze Age culture, or priests, because the priests were those who read the oracle bones. Once they've planned it, that will probably take a lesson. Then the children are going to start writing their essay, and we provide them with these structure strips. So we just cut these out, and then the children could stick them in their book on the left-hand side of the page, or if they've got their QR sheet, which they'll have when they're writing it for the comparative judgment task, they can just have it next to the sheet. So as they write, it's sitting next to the lines, and they can just have it there to flick their eyes to remind them of what they're going to be writing next. So that's a useful resource to have. So they might have in front of them their booklet with all of that information and the learning that they've done and the answers that they've given, the planning sheets that they've completed in the previous lesson, and a structure strip right next to their sheet of paper that they're writing their essay on. And for some of those high retaining students who have a really strong knowledge and a fluid writing style, you might want to try and stretch them by asking them to use some of these essay-specific vocabulary, some of this essay-specific vocabulary here. So those are the resources that you'll need to plan that essay and the guidance to remind you of what it is that we're aiming for. But we want this to be able to be a comparative judgment task so that you can get a good ranking of your pupils, and that will help you to assess and also be able to compare across different schools. We'll be able to make comparisons across different schools and start to create anchors and get a good national picture of what writing looks like in these subjects. So let's have a look at how we do that. The first thing you'll need to do is to sign up to nomoremarking.com, and you can sign up for a free account. I know that some schools are already using their assessing writing product at primary school, which helps you to get a sense of the children's writing and literacy. But if you don't have an account at the moment, that's okay. If you just scroll to the bottom here, you can sign up for a free account and just sign up. It will ask you some information about your school. The sign-up's really quick. I've already signed up, so I can't do it here, but just go through those a couple of steps there and sign up. And then once you're signed in, you need to go to task list at the top and set up a new task for this essay task. So you go to task list and you're going to click add task, and then we might call this Shang Dynasty essay. The judge question can remain choose a better response. You don't need to worry about a description. And when it says QR task, you're going to click yes because you want those barcodes. So this is going to be your task. There's a useful list here which tells you how to get started. So the first thing we're going to do is set up our system. We'll need to add our candidates. So you're going to add each of your candidates. At the moment, this is blanked out for me because I've already set up my school. You can import a CSV file from your sim system to just put all of the children in for your particular year group. So if this is year 3, I just get the year 3 children from the sims, that data, add those in, and then you've got all of the children there. So all of the names are there because they're going to get their own personal script. So you add your candidates in, and once you've added your candidates in, then you're going to generate your sheets. So you just click generate. Once your candidates are in, click generate, and it will generate a whole bunch of personalized scripts for you. It will generate all of those sheets, lined sheets that the children need to write on. So click that and generate your scripts and print those off. And then when the children write their essay, you hand out their particular script. So they'll each write on their own named piece of lined paper that this system prints out. So we've signed up to No More Marking, we've added our candidates, and we've generated those lined pieces of named paper with the QR code on. Pupils will then plan and complete their essay, collect them back in, and you're going to want to scan those essays scripts into a photocopier, and it will give you a PDF file if you scan it in. You can scan them all in one go, so just collect the whole class. You might need to do it in 2 batches sometimes. So just scan them in, and it'll give you a PDF file or maybe 2 PDF files, which has got all of the scripts together. And then once you've done that, then you click scans, and you will find those PDF files, or that PDF file with all the children's scripts. You add that to this page, and it will sort them out because it's got those codes. Because those codes are on them, the system will sort those out. You don't have to scan them in individually or anything like that. So you would then add those scans in, and once you've done that, then you're ready to start judging. So once you've added those in, then you can add judges. So you can send links to you can send this link here to different judges, and it will, if they click that, it will flash up 2 different essays, one on the left hand screen and one on the right hand of the screen, and they just click which one they think is better. You go through that judging process, and once you've done, and it will give you a reliability score here. Once you've done a few hundred judgments, your reliability score will go up to about 0.9, and all of your children's scripts will be in order from the strongest to the weakest. And what we can then do is we can see is your medium script, is your middle script, your average script. How does that compare to the average script of another school? Is your average higher than another school, or is your average higher than a lower school? So you don't just understand how your children are attaining within their cohort, you understand how they're performing compared to children in other schools as well. You might choose after that to copy those essays up in books, or you might want to stick in the sheets into books so that you've got that evidence of great writing from the children, or maybe create a folder for all of the essays that the children are going to write in these units. But that's a lovely piece of writing that they can be really proud of. And once you've done that, they've completed their essays. We can start to compare across the country to see the amazing writing that children are doing in history, and get a really good picture of what fantastic history writing looks like when children know loads about their subject. So we'll be really excited to read those and to see what your children are producing. If you have any questions at all, just drop me an email. Otherwise, watch this video through to see the different steps. Check out the website for the guidance on the planning and the writing of the essay. And if you get stuck on the no more marking, then there's a get started step here, which will be able to walk you through exactly what to do to do your comparative judgment session. Thanks very much for listening, and I'll speak to you soon.